House. Already in the house.
All right.
So we about to get started. Let y'all come on in. Making sure we are live. Let's see. Yep, we are on YouTube. We are on LinkedIn. Ella, make sure that you can see us on LinkedIn too.
My background isn't too loud, is it?
I don't hear anything.
Okay, good. They're over there playing Pretty Woman. I'm like,
Oh, I love it. Hey, that's an iconic movie, iconic
it is.
song.
It is. For me
So,
to know exactly what they're looking at
exactly,
just from the
exactly.
music.
All right, guys. So, welcome to the 1 year anniversary celebration of hosting the podcast Product and Packaging Powerhouse. I am your host and curator, Megan Young Gamble, and this is special because not only is it the 1 year anniversary of us having the podcast, I also launched it on my birthday last year. So, it's a 2-for-1 celebration for us today. And, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not heard about the Product and Packaging Powerhouse, let me just share you're in for a treat because I have the honor and privilege to speak with industry powerhouses around the creation, development, and management of products and packaging to launch into the marketplace. And so when I speak with various powerhouses, they share their expertise from the various business sectors to help ensure you all know how to be properly positioned, how to be compliant, and also key factors that you all should be considering as you are creating your products. And so, if you have questions during the live segment, please drop them down in the chat below on the respective platforms. If you are watching the replay, still drop some questions and I will share them with our guests and make sure that they get answered. And so, without further ado, I want us to go ahead and get right into our very first powerhouse guest, which she was featured on episode number 4. She was actually probably one of my first powerhouses that joined me for the conversation on when I launched the podcast. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I have Miss Sajana Bell, who is the CEO and head of development at Rise Manufacturing and Logistics. Ladies and gentlemen, it is in the month of August, it is Black Business Month. Okay, we are here to promote Black excellence, Black businesses. I have my own Black business, with Get Level Consulting and also with having this podcast. And I always love to make sure that we highlight Black small business. And so just Sajana has her own Black small business. So make sure you do check her out. And so I'm without further ado, I want to go ahead and have Miss Sajana Bell introduce herself and what Rise specializes in. So we can go ahead and get into these questions for today. So Sajana, welcome to the celebration.
Thank you, Megan. So happy to be back. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Sojana Bell, and I am the CEO and founder of Rise Manufacturing. Rise specifically works with beauty professionals and beauty entrepreneurs who are looking to create and develop their own natural and organic brand of products. So that could be hair care products or skincare products, primarily to create an additional line of income, but doing that through, again, natural and organic products versus a lot of the toxic products that we see on the market today.
Mm-hmm. And guys, let me say, like, Sajana has been very intentional about how she curates these products from her own experience, because she actually comes from a family business who's been in hair care for a while. They've operated their own business. And so she understands how to create intentional products. And as part of that, a lot of people think that you should not have capital in place to create your products. That's a misconception. They also think that as you're curating these products that it's going to resonate with everybody, right? And so for our segment today, so John is going to be highlighting you created your product, you developed it, but what's next? And the
Mhm.
big thing that we're starting to see with a lot of brands is that they do not have a strong go to market strategy. And so I would love, Sajana, for you to share some insight on what that looks like. Like, what should companies do first when they're starting to create their products?
I when I sit down with companies, I mean, many are so excited. They're getting started. They're indie brands, and they're so excited mostly about the product. You know, it may be that, oh, they have this oil that they're using from the mountains of Jamaica, or so they're
Yes.
super excited about the product. And once that product is then developed, one of the first questions we ask when we're sitting down and we're kind of coaching them on their retail process, well, who's your customer? And 9 times out of 10, I hear everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's my customer. Okay, well, that's a misconception. We have to kind of drill down on that a bit.
Yeah.
And what they don't often have is a customer avatar or a buyer persona. So specifically stating, okay, what are the demographics of the ideal customer for my brand? And
Mm-hmm.
what I often lead with is that customers, they don't purchase products. They purchase solutions to their problems.
Mm.
Okay. And I'm going to say that again. Customers
Yeah.
don't purchase products, they purchase solutions to their problems. So you have to first identify that customer's problem and how your hair care, skin care, whatever you're developing, how that's going to help solve their problem. So
Mm-hmm.
go into the detail of looking at that customer persona. And I mean, we go to the granular level. Basically, who is this person? Give it a name. Maybe Tina. Tina has been dealing with hair care problems for years. She actually has alopecia. It's getting worse every year. These are the products she typically uses. She purchased these products from these types of stores or
Yeah.
online. Like, you really need to look at all the specifics on how you build out that customer. Once you have that customer, what's the journey for that customer? How are you going to get in contact with them? How are they going to know about you? How are they going to gain trust for you and your brand? So,
Yeah.
not only do you need to have those products in mind, you need to also be ready to talk about your brand story. This is a very competitive market. People buy
Mm-hmm.
from people they like. So, they
Mm-hmm.
need to understand who you are, why you brought this product to market, and how it's going to help them.
Oh, that's so key because that's a common mistake I see with a lot of brands that come to me to help with packaging.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, you are creating this new shampoo and conditioner line. Okay, that's fantastic. What's the unique differentiators of your shampoo and conditioner? What
Right.
is the brand story? What type of key ingredients are utilized to help with telling the brand story and
Yes.
also like the hero product that you're creating? How do we
Mhm.
articulate that on packaging to make sure it's compliant? So
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, like you said, you need to offer a solution to the problems. There's thousands of hair products out in the market. And like you said, it's very competitive. But a
That's right.
lot of times people don't think about what is that go to market strategy.
Mhm.
So, from your perspective, as a CEO, being head of development at Rise Manufacturing, and also making sure you're intentional about the products you're creating and also offering the solutions to problems,
Mhm.
what would be a go to market strategy you would recommend for brands to really think about?
I think a big piece too, before you do an official launch, is to do a whole process of giving out samples,
Mm,
gaining some customer feedback, gaining some customer reviews. I mean, in the market that we're in these days, people are going straight to the reviews before they purchase a product.
yeah,
So you want to make sure that even when you're ready to launch, you already have that customer information, that customer review, so that you can speak to that from the beginning. So I think that's a big part. If that's surveys, coupled with the actual usage, I mean, and give it some time. If you're saying that this works, we need to see that it does work. So not just taking your word for it. So those reviews are paramount to making
yeah.
sure that your brand, I mean, goes off and goes off well once you get to launching.
Absolutely. And even like when I speak with the brands I work with, I'm like, we need to be doing some in house perception studies
Hmm.
because, to your point, you need to get that buy in before you go into full commercialization. If you're not getting feedback and you're just creating this in a silo, then you only creating something just for you. You're not really
Exactly.
offering the solution to the problem
Exactly.
of your ideal
Exactly.
client or the avatar you talked about. So,
Exactly.
guys, please do so. And one other key thing as part of perception study, and me and Sajana talked about this on our full episode previously, is to invest in testing your products because not only is it as part of like getting the feedback from your consumers and also making sure that it's a viable product to launch in the market. But you also want to make sure you have testing in place too, because you cannot go to market and think that you should not test your product, but then you're going to have some adverse events or reactions come from your consumers because they possibly had irritation or whatever the case may be. And that's a bad perception of your brand. And that's going to just taint it, have bad reviews, taint your brand, taint the image, and your whole brand story is just done.
Done.
So please invest into that, guys, to make
Absolutely.
sure you're thinking about it. So, last question, because I know we're on limited time and I want to be respectful of your time too. And I want to share a clip from one of our prior segments as well.
Okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Sajana Bell, we talked about the importance of capital and also like some of the common challenges, with launching a product in the marketplace. So, I want to share a recap of one of her anecdotes that she shared from the full episode, which the link will be down in the comments for you all as well. So that way you get some perspective of why capital is critical for you all to have in place as a brand. So let's go ahead and check this segment out with Mr. Jonna Bell. What recommendations would you give to those brands who need to secure capital to start building and growing their brand and then creating products?
There are different routes, and I mean, really, you have to kind of choose what's best for you. A lot of people sometimes they'll get into this and they'll say, okay, I'm going to quit my 9 to 5. I'm going full force because I need to give it all of my attention, this. But really, you're your first investor.
Mm-hmm.
We bootstrapped our business, and I still, mostly, I have still 100% equity in my company. Now, I've met with investors and found that, I didn't really want to go that route.
Mm-hmm.
And mainly because, as I mentioned, I'm looking to build something for the community. Many times when you go with investors and angel investors, they're looking to 10 times their money as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So they may give you shortcuts or want you to do it a whole lot different than your mission may be. But then you may be in a position now because you want to take this money that you're going to willing to sacrifice some of what you believe and what you wanted as far as your vision for your company for a few dollars. Don't do it.
Yeah. Remember that comment you made?
Guys, don't do it.
So, as part of that, like I want to ask you because a year later, you're still working with countless brands. You still have, equity into your company, 100% equity into your company. Would you still recommend brands to consider investors, or what's your thoughts now?
I still feel pretty much the same. Um, However, at this stage, I have met with more investors. I think it's just a big part of vetting that individual or company and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that your missions align. But however, when you do take on investors, I don't care how small the percentage of equity, they
Yeah.
now have a say in how you manage and run that business. And even though you may be aligned in the beginning, who's to say 2, 3, 5 years from now that's going to still be the case? So it's very important that you do go through a detailed vetting process to, and maybe even not even maybe, but definitely put in writing,
Mm-hmm.
these are my expectations, these are what I want, this is my vision, we're not going to stray from this. So you have that
Right.
as documentation when you may butt heads on a few things, to go back and say, okay, let's go back and review how we established this relationship in the beginning, and are we kind of deviating from that. So I mean, investment can work for some. I think it really has a lot to depend on your product, what you're building. If your goal is to get in, take your business as a product, build it up, sell it, then that's a totally different path from what I'm discussing. I'm
Yeah.
discussing, really we're looking to create sustainable companies within the community that are going to give back and help recirculate community dollars. That's our mission. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're in line with that, then definitely my advice is really speaking to that. But if you're someone that's using your business again as a product for you to gain additional funding, for you to maybe do something different, then you may want to go a different route. Like I said, to each his own. But
Mm-hmm.
again, just look at all the different options. There are a variety of types of funding opportunities. So look and see what works best for you.
I love it. And guys, Sajana has so much wisdom and expertise. Like she's been in this space for over 20 years. Like if you listen to the full episode, she talks about how her and her family were going out to sell Dudleys. And if you don't know about Dudleys in the black community, you know that they were like one of the most prominent hair care brands that helped with promotion of healthy hair, but they were intentional about their sales reps as well. So Sajana was out in these streets, guys, like really pushing like intentional products, and then started to create her own product line with her sisters, and then created Rise Manufacturing. So guys, she has all this wealth of experience, expertise. She's seen the ups and the downs of the market. She experiences it as a black business owner, black female business owner at that too.
Mhm.
But she's really intentional about the products that she helps you all create, because she wants to make sure that she's offering a solution to the problems. She wants to make sure that you all understand the importance of a go to market strategy to help getting your products to market, because we do not want to create all this work and just see it sitting in some boxes.
Absolutely.
We do not. We want to see your product in the market be thriving, getting the notoriety that it deserves, getting the highly claimed reviews and everything. But you have to come to the table with Sajana and her team to be able to tell that effective brand story, highlight what is the unique differentiators of your product, and what is that go to market strategy. So, last question for you, Sajana.
Mhm.
If you could offer one final piece of advice on that go to market strategy, what would you recommend?
Build a community.
Mm,
Build a community. I think that if you're able to build a community that may share, similar goals, aspirations, even when a lot of people are they're kind of, wish-washy.
yeah,
They'll try this because this is hot. They'll try this because this is, what my friend says she uses and it works.
yeah,
But if you have a community, then you guys are locked in together. That's the support. That's the customer loyalty. So you can
yeah.
try new products. You can try them through your community. You can get good, feedback. But building a community is really important when you're trying to drive a new product.
Listen, and y'all heard it from Powerhouse, Miss Sajana Bell, right here, CEO of Rise Manufacturing and Logistics. So, Sajana, thank you so much for tuning in with us today, sharing your insights in our quick segment for today. Ladies and gentlemen, Sajana's full episode from the podcast is going to be down in the show notes for you all as well. And also make sure if you are tuning in with us live, you can click the link that is displayed on your screen, so that way you navigate directly to the episode, add it to your playlist on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube Music, wherever is your favorite platform, because we're on it. And so, and also all of her contact information for Rise Manufacturing, how to get involved with them to create your intentional products, to help with testing your products, and also working with a dedicated team on an effective go to market strategy. Rise Manufacturing details will be down in the show notes for you all to get engaged. So, Powerhouse Sajana, thank you so much. It's so good to see
Thank
you.
you, Megan. Thank you. And happy birthday again.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
So, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what this show is about, is to really highlight other powerhouses to join me at the table, have these intentional conversations, to talk about the good and the ugly side around the creation, development, and launch of the products. I have my focus in packaging and project management, and that is what brought me into the beautiful world of packaging and beauty. And so, on my personal story, I shared a little bit on my first episode, Detour to Destination, where I talked about how I went from pharmacy to car rental with Enterprise, going through that respective career, to landing into my ultimate destination career within the packaging industry. And so even thinking about like my experience and like what I thought, I was like, I never thought that I would even be working in this industry, to be frank, let alone that project management would have led me to work in a health and beauty company based in Atlanta, Georgia, to really gain insight of what it really takes to create products behind the scenes. Because as a consumer, I see the products on the shelf, I'm buying it, spending my coins and my dollars to get it, but I never knew what it really took to create the products, to create the packaging, a lot of the testing that's required to do so, and more. And so listen to episode 2, Detour to Destination. That's my personal journey. I take you on the full roller coaster ride of how I got here. But ultimately, I am right where I'm supposed to be because now I am thriving in my personal business, Get Level Consulting, GLC. I now have the podcast, Product and Packaging Powerhouse. You're tuning in, listening to the replay, or tuning in live with us, and relaunching my digital products, which is part of my training suite, Accelerate Level Institute. So there is so much happening. And as a black female in the space, so minority, double minority at that, and operating my own business, it is truly amazing the evolution that I've gone through to get to this space. And so, one thing I want to highlight before we bring on our next guest is, as part of my journey as a project manager, we are vital to the success of the projects. A lot of times people think that when you work in packaging or work in beauty that it does not require project management. But let me break that misconception and tell you, you need a project manager on your team. And this could be for almost every single department that you have as part of that beauty brand, as part of the packaging company, whatever it is that you have as a company, you can use a project manager. And so, one of my key responsibilities when I became a certified PMP, project management professional, and I started working at this local health and beauty company, one of my key roles was to be a packaging artwork manager. So, what that meant was it was my responsibility to ensure that I work with internal, external stakeholders, making sure that I'm working with the designers to inlay all of the approved copy, making sure that it is properly routed to all the different cross functional team members. Everybody gives feedback or sign off on it, and then also making sure that it gets released to the printer, co-packer, whomever it may be. And a lot of times it seems easy, and it's a very fun job and a very fun role. However, there are some challenges, with that respect of being a packaging artwork manager. And so, with that, I thought it would be cool to bring up one of our prior segments where I had the opportunity to interview Christina Troutman, who is a senior project design manager. And she talks about her experience similarly to being a packaging artwork manager. So, let's see some commonalities we see as a project manager, where you're having to juggle a lot of different roles and responsibilities and people to make sure that you're able to get all of the packaging, artwork, and information ready to route to all internal and external stakeholders. So let's check it out. How are you juggling all the different internal and external stakeholders in your role?
It is a very fine line that that you're walking that you are walking,
Yeah.
because essentially everyone outside of your role is your client, and you want to kind of please your clients, and you have
Mhm.
multiple clients in multiple directions, and they all essentially want the same thing,
Yeah.
but it may not all be at the same time. You know,
Mhm.
sales is very much, can we have it 2 weeks ago, but we just put it in today? You know what I mean? Design is
Yeah.
sometimes, oh, I know they needed it yesterday, but I need there's a few more tweaks I need to make today. So it's very much almost overly communicating is how you have to balance that. You have to overly communicate. Hey, John in sales, I know you needed this on this day, but this is what's happening. You know, you give them kind of finite details. You may not go in.
So, guys, as she mentioned, there requires a lot of juggling of different people, different roles, different tasks, and also making sure that everybody is tracking to the same date. It's not easy. This requires some due diligence, and also it is a real skill to be able to coordinate the respective efforts with the respective team members. And so, as part of packaging artwork, all the information that's required, you do have a copywriter and the brand manager that helps with ensuring that they articulate the type of product, how to use it, etc. But there is one key player that is vital, to ensure that all the information that we are putting on the packaging is compliant, and that is regulatory. I call them the redliners because at the end of the day, you need them to ensure that your products are compliant, the information is compliant. But not only that, they're also having to make sure that all the information that they are putting, that they are reviewing as part of your brand is compliant, but also also in accordance with a lot of the packaging and also product guidelines contingent on the market that is launching into. And so, with that, I want you to check out the segment with Ariana Farina, who is a regulatory consultant and specialist, because she talks about one of the misconceptions that a lot of brands make is that they, especially in this current environment, is that they are only focused on MOGRA, the Modernization of Cosmetic Regulation Act. However, that is not the only regulation we have in place right now as of 2024. There's so many other regulations that we really have to be mindful of. And regulatory are like those key people that not only is the redliner to ensure information we have on the products and the packaging is compliant, but they're also having to make sure, based upon where the products are launching into for respective markets, for respective retailers, and more, that they understand those key guidelines for those markets, for those retailers, and even if it's going international, working with responsible person or the responsible agency to make sure that your products can be represented in other countries. So if you do not have anybody else on your team, I always say regulatory should be one of those key players that should be part of your team from the beginning. And of course, I say, of course, hire me with my company, GLC, but you need regulatory in place because they help ensure all the different guidelines that you are adhering to, helping you to establish the standard operating procedures, and also ensuring that your brand is set up for success and compliant based upon where you are launching your products into the market. So I had to share that because that ties into like one of my key roles as a packaging artwork manager. One of the key players that I always work with, even in GLC, we work when we work with brands based on the scope. You have to have regulatory as part of the service. There is a non-negotiable about it because we are big about compliance to help ensure that your brand is set up for success. And so, as we're going to be transitioning into welcoming our next powerhouse guest, which is Miss Camille Cord Chisholm, I'm so excited about this conversation because I actually had slid through her DMs for her to be one of my respective mentors in the packaging space. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let Camille in and we'll go ahead and kick off our conversation with her right here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. Hey, Camille.
Hey, it's so good to see you.
It's so good to see you. I'm loving the hair.
Thank you. Same to you.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
And you're killing the game.
Oh, thank you. You are too. And happy early birthday to you because we share the same birthday month.
Yes, I'll be 22 at the end of the month.
And you know what? You look stellar for 22. I love it. I love it. So, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Camille Cord Chisholm, she is a powerhouse out in this packaging industry. Let me just say, I slid through Camille's DM during the COVID after I listened to an interview of her with Adam Peake on the People of Packaging podcast. And I was like, hey, you're a Black female in the space and you're in packaging. Would you be my mentor? And she was like, absolutely. And so we've actually stayed connected. She's helped educate me, teach me some things. I learned a lot of stuff from her and how she moves, with her building out her practice, Indigo Packaging and Consulting, and also with her leading, being an instructor at Michigan State, her alma mater. And so before we get into a little bit of our conversation, you see she's pointing at the Spartan. And so without further ado, Camille, I would love for you to just give us a quick introduction of yourself and how you got into the world of packaging.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Camille Cord Chisholm. And despite my 21 years of age, I've been in packaging for about 35 years. I've worked in food, pharma, automotive, distribution, sales, a little bit of everything, just everything. And it's just been a lot of fun. I love it. I love every day of it. I got into packaging when I was in college and my father was an engineer and I wanted to go in art. And he said, who's paying for art school? So I started taking physics and chemistry, but still taking art. So I found out that this was a perfect blend. They talk about STEM, and they added the A and made it STEAM to add the art. I was STEAM before STEAM was even a thing. So I love what I do. It's every day is different. Every day's fun. I have packages all over the place, all over my office, because that's what packaging engineers do. So that's pretty much me. Currently, I'm consulting. I also do some work for Michigan State. I instruct, but I also am leading DEI initiatives for the School of Packaging. So it's been great because I'm based in Metro Detroit, and Detroit is not far. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump from East Lansing. And because of Detroit Automotive, we have a lot of STEM-based schools and students. So it's been pretty easy to say, hey, packaging is this really cool thing, and you get to do STEM and STEAM and whatever it is that you want to do. So we're making some good inroads, letting people know, basically spreading the good word about packaging in Metro Detroit, and it's spreading out too. We have other as well. We have a partnership with NCCU and HBCU, and we have students that are excellent students. They're also doing a great job, and so I'm really enjoying that. And then one of the other things I want to mention was that through SPC, Sustainable Packaging Coalition, they have started a collaborative to build more inclusion into packaging and sustainability specifically. So I'm leading that, and we just kicked that off recently. So I'm really excited about that.
So that is so good. Thank you. See, that's why you have people that keep you accountable, because she couldn't even hear me because I was on mute. But she was so slick with it. I love it. See, you know the cues. So I love that there is such a need for diversity in the space, and SBC and your partnership, and with you leading the respective initiatives of DNI and Michigan State. And so this brings up a great segue as we get into our conversation to bring up our prior podcast interview. And one of the questions I asked is, why is there a need for diversity? So I want to share this quick clip because I'll get into our conversation of why this is much needed. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So share with us a little bit about why you saw the need to really expand the packaging industry to help it become more diverse.
So, this is one of the things I love about, having my own business and being an entrepreneur is that I can do the things that I love to do. So I saw this position available at Michigan State, and I know a couple other people that consult and they also instruct. And I just, like one of my friends who said, I want to be like you when I grow up, So when I saw this, I thought, this is very interesting. So I reached out, and, things just started falling into place. It took a little while, but things fell into place. And then, they reach out to me, Matt Dom at Michigan State, the head of the program. He's awesome. So I just have to throw that in there. But he said, hey, we also have another, besides the instruction, we also have another role that we're thinking about. What do you think of this? And it's, DEI, think about packaging industry is like the third largest industry in the world, right? So you really need to make sure that you have representation from,
And see, if you want to see the full episode, make sure you click on the link that'll be down in the show notes to get the full episode. But that's just a tidbit because, as Camille mentioned, with DE&I initiatives, STEM being incorporated within HBCUs and her alma mater, and also within Detroit, and now partnering with SBC, Sustainable Packaging Coalition, there is a need for representation and diversity. So Camille, I would love for you to talk about, what you're seeing present day, because that was a year ago to date, actually, when we had that conversation. And so what are you seeing with your partnership with SBC on representation and also diversity in the space?
So one of the things I wanted to bring up is the fact that we have not, we're not going to represent the world. And with the third largest industry, we need to represent the world. And we literally just won't have enough people, right? The other thing is that there are studies that show that the more ideas and people that you have, the better ideas you get. So here are some examples. I did a little research, and if we stayed the way we were 100 years ago, let's say, or 60 years ago, these are some things we probably wouldn't have in the packaging world. We wouldn't have plant-based inks. We wouldn't have 3D print technology. We wouldn't have packing tape, polyurethane, stainless steel, modified atmosphere packaging, the little pizza stand that goes into your pizza box, the flat bottom paper bag, vacuum canning, things like that. So, these are things that are innovative that if we don't branch out and get more and more ideas and more voices, we wouldn't have some of that technology and innovation in the packaging world. So I think it speaks for itself.
And those are key things, because my stainless steel bottle, you need a packaging engineer, you need packaging industry for that. Exactly. I have a 3D printer, where I'm playing with PLA filaments and such, packaging, as she just talked about, even to packing tape. Look how many packages we are getting shipped worldwide. I think the number is like almost over 4,000 packages per day worldwide. Like, even packing tape, like, packaging is such a huge industry. And within the industry, there's various industries that you can focus on. So like Camille started in automotive, I've been in the beauty space, you have pharma, you have, it's so many different areas. But to that point, we need more professionals to come into the space, and we need more future leaders to come into the space to help fill this gap, because we have a lot of people transitioning out because of retirement, because of age, and there's a big gap within the workforce to that point. And
Yes, I agree.
so, like, what are you seeing, like, as the workforce is shifting and the need for more diversity and inclusion in the space? Like, what do you see will really resonate, to get these future leaders in?
Well, one of the things I see, in the US, we kind of have a model of, we only have so many, the pie's only this big, right? But with packaging, the pie is pretty much infinite. It's so big. There are enough slices for everyone to remain in packaging, and we're still going to need more people. So that's one of the things I think people are starting to actually realize, that this is not about taking away, it's additive, it's not subtractive. So that's one of the things I see. When we look through history, when people, we still have these different types of programs and initiatives, and sometimes they wane out. I don't really see this waning out, just because we need to have people, and we need people with the skill set, with the talent, with the background, with the interest, with the innovative thought, because especially with sustainability, for example, plastics. There's a paper from 1963, I believe, and the guy that spoke, he was speaking about a quote that he made in the 50s that said, the future of plastics is in the trash, meaning single-use packaging, single-use plastics, and it doesn't have to be just packaging, but single-use plastics are the wave of the future. If you make things single-use, people have to buy more. So that was how packaging, the plastics were developed to be thrown away. So now we're trying to build sustainability into something that wasn't designed to be sustainable. So we have to do this.
Yeah, it's pretty much a requirement, because now we're seeing a lot of environmental challenges. Our recycling centers and MRFs are beyond capacity. There's not enough workforce there. I know technology is being incorporated within these spaces, but we need people to be there to help with leveraging the technology and help with all the environmental challenges that we're seeing in the marketplace. Because in beauty, oh, we do a lot of sampling. There's a lot of single use plastics. Look at Ulta, telling on myself, and Sephora, all those little, exactly. Look, I have some lip gloss here, some lip gloss here. Exactly. You know, these are single use plastics,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
this is the best and viable option for this type of product, especially lip gloss, lipsticks, mascaras. Um, they come in these type of packages, you know, and they're discarded because a lot of them are under the respective size that can be properly recycled. You know, so to that point, we are we have to focus on sustainability. And in my opinion, we still have a ways to go before we get there. We're still in this infancy stage, but I think as we have more leaders come into the space, have more diversity in the space, have more representation, bringing on the talent and helping to fill that gap, I think it will help us with more innovation and more idea generation of how to think outside the box, especially from like the younger, who are we now? Gen Alpha, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, that demographic. Yeah, exactly. The younger kids, the ones that be doing all the TikTok dances, or they say Riz and stuff like that, whatever the little terms are now. So we need them to be here and come to the table to offer different perspective and help with leading the sustainable initiatives that we have here, as well. And so, since we're almost at our time today, I want to ask you one last question, Camille, which is how can companies get involved with SPC Collaborative to promote inclusion and representation in their packaging efforts?
So they can either reach out to me directly.
Okay.
We're looking for people to join the collaborative. We're initially starting with people that are members. So if you're not a member of SPC, then you can join SPC. You can also go to their website, and I'm going to pull that up so that you have it. It's SPC. You can go to spcimpact.com, and you can see some of the events that are going on. And then from there, you can explore the website, but you can join. They have hundreds of members across the board, many companies that are innovative when it comes to packaging. They're really dedicated and they're really devoted to sustainability. And sustainability is continuous improvement. So it never ends. You can always become more sustainable. So it's a great initiative. And I just say, like I said, you can reach out to me directly. You can go to my company website and you can contact me that way at indigopkg.com, Indigo Packaging, Indigo PKG, or you can look me up on LinkedIn, Camille Court Chisholm. Or like I said, you can go to the SPC Impact website and look at their organization, look at their events, and just get involved. It's a great place to be. And the collaborative, again, we're looking for people to help us to be on our steering committee because we're just kicking this off. We've got ideas. We're looking at a couple of areas. We've got, education, sharing, because by sharing, it's not always, sometimes you're sharing negative stories about being the only person, being different, not being part of the tribe, for example. It can be very educational for other people because they could be learning moments on how one person can speak up and it changes the entire environment and leads to people being more open and collaborative. So those are some of the things that we're looking at, and then just ways to, either get involved with education, get students, get more people to attend, and get the word out even more about SPC.
Oh, I love that. So, guys, spcimpact.com. It is displayed on the screen if you're tuning in with us live or catching the replay. And I want to talk to you offline because I want to see how I can get involved as well, with SPC Impact and the steering committee. So, we'll definitely have a conversation after this one to talk about what that would look like and help support the respective efforts. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Camille Court Chisholm, CEO of Indigo Packaging and Consulting. She's also the DE&I instructor and leading the initiatives at Michigan State, her alma mater for School of Packaging, and also working exclusively with Sustainable Packaging Coalition as well to help create more diversity, inclusion, and representation in this space. And so please make sure you do check out Camille's full episode on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. The link is down for you all, displayed on the screen and also in the show notes. And you will also have Camille's direct information to contact her to learn more about how you can get involved with SBC Impact as well.
And they can also go to the sustainablepackaging.org website as well to see that. And Megan, again, very proud of you. I think you mentor me as much as I mentor you.
Well, thank you. I received that. Like, I think it's beauty in being able to learn from each other, regardless of how many years of experience you have. So I'm always encouraged because I'm like, I just learned so much from like the people I have conversations with here on the podcast, me and you with our prior conversations, and also with us being Black female owners, business owners as well, and some of the challenges we both endured on our respective journey and how to navigate that. So I appreciate you for pouring into me, just like we pour into each other, into our community as well.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me for this celebration. I appreciate it. And happy early birthday to you. And fun fact, Camilla's a twin. So happy early birthday to you and your twin.
Thank you. And I have twins.
Yes, and she has twins. Yes, she's a twin and she has twin girls too.
All right.
So thank you, Camille, for joining me today.
Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye. Guys, so that is really the beauty of having a community. So like Camille mentioned, it really takes community. Sajana mentioned that earlier in our conversation, that it takes community to be part of this respective effort, to help lead the products and the packaging, to launch in the marketplace. There is so much power behind it. And so before we get into our next powerhouse guest, I want to highlight a few things around sustainability, because this seems like to be the buzzword that all of us are hearing, all of us are seeing, brands are requesting it, and more. And so, as part of that, a lot of times we think sustainability is a one size fits all approach, and it's not, to be frank. Sustainability means something different to everybody. And so, when I've had the opportunity to interview a few guests, which I'm going to share a few of their highlight clips here in just a moment, we talk about this. Like, what are we seeing around sustainability? What are some of those environmental challenges, just like what I asked Camille? And then also from a startup brand, what are things that they're being challenged on as they're creating sustainable products and sustainable packaging? And things for startup brands to consider when they are considering sustainable packaging. There is so much conversation around sustainability that a lot of times it starts to become greenwashing, to be frank. And so, with that, I want to bring up one of my conversations with Powerhouse guests, who was with Adam Peak, to talk about what he's seeing from his perspective on sustainability. So let's check it out. Come of it. But what are some things you're seeing, that are claiming that it's sustainable and you're recognizing that it's not really sustainable? Sustainable is more sustainable. So talk through a little bit of what you're starting to see within the industry.
Yeah. So a lot of it's just words that kind of bother me. So, and I don't say this to demean or defame any companies, because I think that companies, for the most part, I like to assume good in people and assume good in brands. There's a lot of people that don't do that, right? That are just very pessimistic. I'm a very optimistic person, so I don't assume ill intentions. But also, it's important to point out, so like there's a term that I've seen a lot that's like bio. It's like, well, this is a bioplastic. Like, all plastic is a bioplastic, right? It's not like petroleum. I mean, petroleum comes from the ground. Like, it's not like petroleum comes from dead orcas or something like that. Like, we're not murdering sea lions to get oil. Like, you may argue that oil leads to it, and that's a whole other conversation. But like, it does come from the earth. It's fossil fuel. Like, it's from dinosaurs. So like, corn turned into PLA isn't more bio than petroleum turned into film. Like, to me, they're both bio. We should get rid of that. Biodegradable is another word that drives me crazy, because everything is biodegradable. Everything is biodegradable.
Yeah.
It's just under what conditions and in what time does it actually biodegrade. So just saying this packaging is biodegradable means you're just saying this is packaging. That's all you're saying. You're not actually saying anything. And you know, fortunately, I think we're starting to see more government intervention in this. There's the FTC green guides. We have extended producer responsibility laws that we're starting to come on to
Yeah.
put some of the pressure on brands who, again, I'm not assuming ill intent on, putting them in a place to be like, are you about it? Like, are you going to talk?
So, guys, you see with the conversation and highlight from just Adam Peak, where his episode is titled "Be a Packaging Steward," you know that sustainability could be a catch-all word, and like he says, sometimes brands are using it just as words. But as part of that, sustainability is more than just words, and we have to really be cognizant of not greenwashing, and really hot and really playing up to what we're really doing and stuff like that. Like you can't say that you have a paper bottle when the inside of the paper bottle is a plastic bottle inside of it. That's greenwashing, right? You know, so as part of that, you know, you have to be very intentional about the products that you're creating and also how you're intending on highlighting the products and the packaging. But as part of sustainability, we still have some environmental challenges. So I want to bring up a quick clip from my conversation with Corey Connors, who's the host of Sustainable Packaging Podcast. I've been featured on his podcast as a guest, and he's also been a guest right here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. So in this clip, Corey's going to share his perspective on some environmental challenges we're seeing within the sustainable space. So let's check it out. So, since you're teaching your children about sustainable packaging and really being, as Adam Peake says, packaging stewards of the earth, from your perspective, what are some main environmental challenges that have been posed with utilizing traditional packaging, and how can sustainable packaging help address these issues?
Yeah, great question. Packaging has been overdone, over-engineered, too much, too large, too many layers for too long. It was a sign of prestige if you had to open 7 different layers to get to your beautiful watch. And I think things are changing for the better. I think, of course, there's luxury brands and you expect that elegant experience.
Right.
But I think a lot of the brands are realizing, hey, if we have minimal packaging here, if we have the least amount possible, and that still protects the product, we can still have great sales. And our customers will actually thank us, because COVID really put a spotlight on, look at how much waste.
So you heard from Corey in just that small segment, how he's having to teach his children about sustainable packaging, some of the efforts, but there's a much larger conversation around environmental challenges, because Corey lives in Oregon. I live in Georgia. How we do things here in the state of Georgia, here in the South, are not the same practices that is done in Oregon and Washington and such. Now, we do have some great, you know, some empathy legislation, guidelines, et cetera, that are in place. So like Adam Peake mentioned with the FTC green guides, with packaging EPR, you know, we have all these different bills coming down the pipeline, which is fantastic, but we have to have the right infrastructure in place. And so here in Georgia, how we recycle things, you may have to search for a recycling bin. Whereas in other states, recycling bins are readily available, and they promote and encourage people to really think about the end of life use. So how do we start to get on the same plane, have the same playing field, and making sure that we are all operating in accord to make sure that we are all being intentional about our environmental challenges and what we can do to help with being packaging stewards of the earth as well. So as we're about to start shifting gears and have our next powerhouse guest join us, I want to share one last clip around sustainability. And this comes from Carolina Lopez, who's the CEO of Bijou Skincare. She's intentional about creating a sustainable brand, not only for the packaging, but also for the products and ingredients that she's using. So let's hear her thoughts around what she's seeing with some of the challenges as a startup brand when she's having these conversations around sustainability. Let's check it out. How do you really think about the conversations when you're working with contract manufacturers to make sure that, number one, they're sustainable, The second part of that is how they're creating sustainable products centered around the formulas to make sure that they're clean.
So to disclose that it's tough conversations to have with them, right? Because they have experience, they have multiple big, huge firms that they already work on. So me, one person, right, coming into a manufacturer and saying, no, I do not agree with this, it's a tough and challenges conversation that you have to be able to communicate well, number one. But number two, I am the formulator of my formulas for Bijou. So I came in with, hey, these are my formulations. I want to make sure that if I do have this contract with the manufacturer, that they're still going to be my formulations, whether we do a contract and I proceed with you or not.
So, as you heard from Carolina Lopez, that she experiences her own challenges as a startup brand, and her having to be really challenge the status quo of what she's seen in the marketplace, and also what conversations she has to have to ensure that they are really adhering to her products. So, like what Sajana Bell mentioned earlier in this segment, how to really create a solution to the problem. Carolina is doing that with her company, Bijou Skincare. So, sustainability is a big conversation. And a lot of times we have to challenge the status quo, to talk about it, to really make sure that the brands and the contract manufacturers are intentional about the type of products that we're creating and more. And so, as we're about to shift gears, you see, I did a quick little change because my next guest here is a fellow Leo. And also, we are going to be talking about the importance of the workforce and how to hire on demand. Because, as I mentioned, leading up to this point in my conversation, and also what Camille mentioned as part of needing more representation in the packaging space, we are needing more people to come in because there's a shortage in the workforce. And what are some solutions that companies and brands alike can do to help ensure that they are starting to think about their workforce from an interim standpoint to then permanent? And so I'm going to be welcoming powerhouse guest Rebecca Medina with Talent Cheetah for us to talk about hiring on demand. So let's welcome our powerhouse right here to the table.
Hello, good afternoon, Megan.
Hello, Miss Rebecca. Look at us with our cheetah print. I just did a costume change just for you. For both of us to be in cheetah for today.
I appreciate that. And it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Megan.
Yes, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is powerhouse guest Rebecca Medina, who is the CEO and founder of Talent Cheetah, which is a hiring agency to help companies hire on demand project managers. And so, fun fact, we are both Leos. So, Rebecca's birthday is actually is it tomorrow or is it Friday?
It's Friday.
It's Friday the 16th. Today is the 14th at the time of recording. We both are tapping into our lioness Leo energy. That's why I put on the cheetah shirt to match her energy, because I knew she was going to come with a cheetah print. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Rebecca Medina with Talent Cheetah. So it's so good to see you, Rebecca.
Likewise, Megan, it's an honor to be here to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of your insightful podcast and also celebrate your birthday. So there's a lot that we are happy about today, and it's such a privilege to be able to be your guest.
Oh, well, thank you. Likewise. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let me just share a little bit of context of how me and Rebecca got started and how we're going to be having this brief conversation today. So there was a time where I was needing some support for my team for a client engagement. And one of my mutual friends, who's a project manager, shout out to Missy, who actually referred me to Rebecca and was like, hey, Rebecca has this great company where she has project managers you can hire on demand. And so I was like, let me check this out. And so checking it out, went through their easy to navigate profile, find different candidates, being able to interact with them directly. I was able to hire my first person through Talent Cheetah to help support me on the respective engagement. And so let me just say, guys, I was able to use her platform. Setup was probably 30 seconds to get set up, be able to view candidates based upon what my specifications were. I can interact with them directly within the portal. and be able to hire them directly. So it was a very seamless process. And I just want to say, Rebecca, to you and your team, great job on building out a very inclusive, easy to navigate platform. Because a lot of times, as business owners, companies, decision makers, we don't have a lot of time, you know, but you help take that time factor out of the picture to make sure that it's easy and something easy to set up in very little time. So I want to just give you your flowers to highlight you and the awesome work that you and your company has done with the platform.
Thank you, Megan. It really has been a privilege to serve you and the Get Level Consulting team. Our platform is a disruptor in the recruitment space because, as you mentioned, you can go from I need a project manager to a short list of candidates that you are directly interviewing same day. And this type of solution doesn't exist in the market. And so our
Mhm.
speed to hire is integral. Fun fact, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average time to hire for a technical project manager using traditional hiring methods, job boards, and such is 3 months. And so, as project managers and understanding the criticality of a project manager, that's unacceptable. And so, that's our why behind the Talent Cheetah platform. A hiring manager can create an account, post their project need, and
Yeah.
directly engage with pre-screen vetted project managers who are available immediately to step in and deliver value same day.
Well, and I can attest to that because being able to have that speed to market approach and being able to hire my next talent relatively quick is important. Because as part of that, we're seeing an influx of needing project managers worldwide. And even in the US, we're seeing an influx according to PMI's global survey, where we're needing to see project manager positions. We need 25 million positions within the next 3 years. That's a lot of people. But when you look at the workforce now, we don't have that many people in place from a workforce standpoint. And so the fact that Talent Cheetah is able to really simplify the process, to hire your next project manager or your talent for short-term projects or even longer, you help them to do so. And so my question to you, Rebecca, is, you have this disruptive system. So what is the difference of on-demand hiring versus traditional hiring? Because you kind of mentioned like the time frame a little bit earlier, but I would love for you to go a little bit more in depth about what's the difference between the two.
Yes, I'll talk about three primary differences. The first one is, as we mentioned, it's speed to hire. With on demand hiring, hiring managers are able to access talent in real time and
Yeah.
hire same day or same week. Whereas with traditional hiring methods, that time frame tends to be longer and it can extend into months. Secondly, is the cost associated with on demand hires. Oftentimes, they are freelancers, independent contractors, and consultants. And so the organization is not burdened with the cost of healthcare or some of the costs associated with a full time employee. And this works well when hiring niche talent that you need specifically for a given project. And then the
Yes.
third one is flexibility. On demand hiring does not have to be a 40-hour per week opportunity. We've had clients hire project managers from our platform for 10 hours a week. They can need 10 hours up to, of course, full time. Nice. Full time employment. That's another key difference is that when hiring through our platform, you don't have to hire a PM for 40 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
So you save with your cost in that in the short term you're paying less for that resource that you need now versus a full-time employee.
Yes, absolutely. And guys, when I say I can attest to everything that Rebecca is mentioning, because I know for me, I didn't need a full time person, but I needed somebody to support me, on a part time basis. And that was of value to me. So the flexibility of being able to hire the talent within her platform based upon your needs, based upon your budgets, based upon the time frame of the project is really key and it's really valuable. And so the fact that that is some of the unique differentiators of the on-demand hiring versus traditional hiring, where you have to work 40 hours a week, you have the insurances, you have some of the stipulations where you have to report into the office. It gives more flexibility with the on-demand hiring, which I can really appreciate. And so, question for you, Rebecca, is how can companies effectively integrate on-demand hires into their existing teams and workflows?
Yes, that's a great question, Megan. And I would recommend that companies have a plan in place for how to onboard their on demand hires that is different from full time employees. So, on demand hires need access to systems and tools on day one. They already
Mhm.
have the technical skill set and the project management know how to be effective immediately, and so they should be provided with the tools and the resources on day one so they can hit the ground running. Having a plan in place is integral. And then communicating that plan effectively to
Mhm.
your on demand hire, your project manager, is key because you want to give them the ability to succeed and succeed quickly. And so having the plan documented is what we recommend
Yeah.
to our hiring organizations, and sending it in advance so that the project manager can prepare before they start working with you is key. And we've seen organizations that don't have these processes in place, and it delays the ability of the hire to be effective immediately.
Okay. So that's good to know. And last question for you, because I think this is something really golden to think about with the workforce present day, is what qualities or skills should companies look for when hiring on demand to ensure that they get the best fit for their needs?
Yes, first and foremost, companies are looking for specific technical skills, especially when they are hiring a technical project manager. Do they understand Salesforce implementations? Do they understand IT infrastructure? So that's
Mhm.
important. But I would say that even more important are those soft skills, and PMI talks a lot about those soft skills. Are they
Yeah.
adaptable? An on demand hire needs to step into your environment not as a full time employee, as someone who is expected to deliver very quickly. And so that adaptability is important. The ability to take your tools, your processes, your team, and integrate very quickly is key. Another soft skill that I think is extremely important for project managers is leadership. Someone who not only understands the theory behind project management, but
Mhm.
understands how to work with people, how to navigate teams, how to quickly solve problems, critical thinking, expeditious problem solving. Those soft skills I've seen, in the absence of them with project managers, they really do struggle. So that's what I would look for as a hiring manager when looking to hire an on demand PM.
Oh, Rebecca has so much wealth of knowledge and expertise, even with her now having Talent Cheetah. So she's a PM by trade. And so she's been doing this for over 20 years. That's how much, like, guys, PMs are essential to the success of your project and your company. That is how I came into the beautiful world of beauty and packaging, thanks to project management. I knew what it was like coming as an employee and then transitioning to a contractor, freelancer, contractor, now consultant. So there is so many things that you need in place, and really having a PM to help drive the success of your projects, helping to really define processes and procedures within your organizations, helping to leverage not only the technical skills, but also those soft skills, that Rebecca mentioned as well. You can get all of those, you can help find your next talent right on Talent Cheetah's website. And so I'm going to display their website at the bottom of the screen. And also, their respective links will be down in the recap and the show notes for you all. Because if you are a hiring manager, a decision maker that is needing to help backfill or even fulfill your current workforce needs, Talent Cheetah is available to help. We want to lessen the hiring process because, as Rebecca mentioned, traditionally it's taken 3 months. Whereas with Talent Cheetah's very intuitive and disruptive platform, you can hire your next talent within same day or within the same week. and also being mindful of your budget, also the time frame for needing the talent, and more. So please get engaged with Rebecca Medina at Talent Cheetah and also the Talent Cheetah to hire your next project manager on demand and making sure that you are helping to fulfill the gap within your workforce, regardless of industry. I will help make a personal introduction to anybody that is in the packaging space, beauty space, because there's a lot of PMs that are looking to support your next project and they have the resources and talent available just for you. So, Rebecca, any final remarks before we wrap up for today's segment?
Yes, one final remark. Our hiring solution is 100% free to use. And that is probably the most important point, especially when you are a small business owner and you have a specific budget. There are no upfront costs, there are no subscription fees. We believe that every organization deserves equitable access to high quality and quick project management help when they need it. And we built the platform to make that happen. So I encourage everyone to sign up at talentcheetah.com and start to find your next project management rock star. It's completely free. Thank you,
Yes.
Megan, for the opportunity to celebrate your 1 year anniversary and your birthday with you.
Yes, likewise. And happy birthday to you, my fellow lioness.
Yes, keep roaring.
Yes, keep roaring. So I love that. I love how she always ends our time together as keep roaring. So I love that. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us for the celebration. And we look forward to having you on a full exclusive interview to talk more in depth about Talent Cheetah and maybe show us the platform.
Likewise. Thank you, Megan. Happy birthday. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard from Powerhouse Rebecca Medina, who is the CEO of Talent Cheetah, and helping to help you hire your next talent on demand with her disruptive platform. I can share from my own personal experience how the system has definitely been very easy to use. It is free. I think that's the one key thing that I did not highlight earlier is how it's free. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to bring on our next powerhouse. And before we do so, we're going to take a brief intermission to definitely make a transition. We won't be long, probably about 1.5 minutes. And then we're going to go ahead and bring on our next powerhouse guest. So I'll be right back with you all. All right, we are back. So I had to just go take a quick sip of water, put on some more lip gloss to welcome our next powerhouse guest. So our next featured powerhouse guest is going to be Miss Julia Wilsey. I call her the queen of circularity. And as I bring her on, we'll talk about why she's the queen of circularity. And then also get into our conversation around some of the challenges of selling and changes in the last 20 years. So let me go ahead and bring Julia Wilsey onto the stage with us for today. Hello, Miss Beautiful Julia.
Hello, hello, Megan. It's such a pleasure. Happy birthday. I'm so excited for you.
Yes, thank you. It's so good to see you, Queen of Circularity.
Well, it's good to be back. So tell me, how's everything going?
Things are going wonderful. So I'm truly blessed and just truly fulfilled to be in this space, be in this season, being able to have people like you and other powerhouses that have supported me on this journey. So I just want to say thank you. Like you have been one of the biggest supporters for me. I always wear this beautiful necklace that you give me. So guys, ladies and gentlemen, Julia Wilsey made this actual glass heart necklace for me from our initial episode. And fun fact, she has a glass studio in her house. So she makes curated pieces. So if you check out the full episode, which the links will be shared with you all, she shared a beautiful hummingbird in remembrance of one of her good friend's son. And she made this beautiful heart glass necklace for me to share our love of packaging and also being badass females in the industry as well. So things are phenomenal. And that's why I said I'm just truly full and just grateful to have people like you to support me on this journey and ongoing. So thank you.
Oh, it has been my pleasure. And to see you succeed this last year, listen to all your podcasts, reading your newsletter. I mean, you have so much to give this industry, and it's amazing to see what you've done and accomplished in 1 year.
Yes, thank you. Well, I want to make sure that we catch up offline because I want to hear about your son's Odyssey of the Mind because I remember they had a world championship and Julia used to be part of Odyssey of the Mind. So it was a really cool conversation. So we have to reconnect on that as well. But as part of sharing within the industry, Julia has a lot of industry experience in packaging space and also in sales. And so, what I would love for us to talk about today is some of the challenges of selling, especially like what you've seen over the last 20 years. So, when I say she says, I have a lot to contribute to this industry, she has a lot to contribute to this industry. Like, she's advocating on Capitol Hill, like, she's very involved and integral within her company and within the packaging space. So, she has a lot to share with us as well. And so, Julia, I want to highlight one clip from one of our prior segments really quick before we get into our conversation, because you always talk about how to be intentional with what we do. And so I want to share this one clip with everybody because I think this will help set the tone of some of the challenges we're seeing with selling. So let's check it out. What is one piece of advice you would like to leave your listeners with around being intentional around, circularity, what they can do, where to get started, or anything? What's one piece of advice you would give them?
I think being intentional is key, right? Think about your product. Can it be reused? Can it be refilled? Can it be reduced? And then can it be recycled? Every product is different, and every product has the ability to be more innovative. So, what can you do with your product with that line to make it better? And it may not be using paper. It may not be, using plastics. It's going to be unique to them, but being intentional is key.
Intentional is key. That's the message for today. Okay, from the queen of circularity herself, Miss Julia, right here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. So, Julia, do you remember that our conversation from then?
Absolutely.
I love that. And being intentional, like you've been intentional with our conversations, you've been intentional with following, you've been intentional about advocating in packaging. And so now, with people thinking about creating intentional products and launching them, like what are some of the challenges you've seen with selling products over the last 20 years?
Absolutely. I feel that 20 years ago, people were more likely to change. And I feel that people now are getting into relationships with their brands, relationships with their vendors, and change is becoming very scary. I think 20 years ago, the teams were larger. So being able to make a change to a new vendor, adding a company to an AVL, there's a little more bandwidth. And the way that industry has gone, a lot of management teams are smaller, and therefore there's less time and resources to bring on new suppliers. So you really have to show a value, help a client recognize how important it is to work with you as a person, as a company, to make that switch and make that investment. And that has definitely been a change in the last 20 years.
So that's good to know because everybody's seen a change in the workforce. Like you said, teams are smaller. There's not as much dedicated time for like client engagements and things of that sort. But to your point, being intentional and offering value to these companies and also within your internal cross-functional teams is key because there's an influx of products readily available in the market. and there's a lot of competition, and even from sustainable packaging and what we're doing. How do we lead those initiatives? How do we stay abreast of all the changes? And Julia's advocating on Capitol Hill, guys, within packaging. So, as part of that, like, what can companies start doing when they have the smaller teams? They want to offer value, they're trying to stay abreast of all these different guidelines and regulations, but still are trying to master the art of selling. Because at the end of the day, every business is in business to make money and to sell a product, to be frank. Like, what can companies do to be very intentional about offering the value and how to overcome some of these challenges with selling?
I think being open to receiving valuable information. A couple of the great clients I work with, they're very authentic people. They take a moment to listen, to try to understand, and then they develop relationships. So when they find someone who truly cares about their product, about their company's success, they gravitate towards that person. And with an open ear, they'll listen to ideas and new suggestions. And I think those people, those companies succeed over time, whereas companies that are closed off and don't want to open their doors tend to be left behind. So I think for a company, making sure you keep your door open, being, ability to receive that information, that is key.
I love that. And, as we talk about like the changing consumer behavior as well, we're seeing this paradigm shift, and that's impacting some of the sales and how companies know to keep the door open or if they're going to close it. And so from your own personal experience, Julia, like, how has consumer behavior changed in the last 2 decades, and how has this impacted sales strategies?
Yeah, from a consumer standpoint, especially Gen Z, so much more online shopping and
Yeah.
developing brands, not just through traditional means, but now through the social media. I was listening to a
Mhm.
great podcast this morning, and Instagram, TikTok are becoming sales channels even more than Amazon. People
Mhm.
want to see a video, they want to have that authentic relationship, to hear what other people feel about that brand, that product. And selling through the social media is definitely going to take the world by storm. So I
Ooh.
think products need to be aware of that. Definitely being in packaging, traditional packaging on a shelf is very important, but also
Mhm.
showing that packaging, the unboxing experience on a TikTok or YouTube platform is really beneficial. You're showing your clients this is the care, the creativity we're taking, not only with the product, but also with the packaging. And if a
Yeah.
client sees that you care about the first experience, the touch and feel of a package, as well as the product, they're going to have more trust in that relationship. And that can absolutely be shown virtually as well as in a store.
Ooh, that's so big. And the unboxing experience has definitely been big since COVID, because now we want to see all the pretty, shiny things before we even receive it. And even when we receive it, we want everybody to, experience this unboxing with us. And so I'm curious, with your current company, you all are traditional packaging manufacturers, and y'all really focus on print optimization, helping brands to see the value in what you offer, and also being compliant with the market. Like, how are you all steering the conversations with the brands to be intentional about how they're selling, consumer behavior, and also packaging guidelines?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things to take in consideration because every client is different. So I'm working with gourmet foods, I'm working with biopharma, I'm working with, appliance companies. So
Mm.
the key is to understand what the client need is. If you're a pharma company and your need is to help your doctors and nurses get quickly the product. So that way, when you're on a surgical floor, you're able to grab it, open it, and use the product inside. You're really focused on an opening experience. So you're
Mhm.
helping the client understand, this is the primary factor is how to get the product quickly, easy, effectively, so your nurses don't waste a millisecond. If you're talking to cosmetic companies, you're really trying to stand out on that shelf. So when someone's walking through Sephora and they're trying to decide between three different products, and you know this well, Megan, you really want to stand out as a quality product, even on that package. So understanding each client, each need, each end use, that's going to be the key to being intentional, because you have to know the need before you're able to have a solution.
Oh, you and another powerhouse guest, Sajana Bell, earlier, she was our first guest. You both are saying the same thing. And ultimately, it's having a solution to the problem, ultimately, and being intentional about the product that you're creating, how to resonate on shelf. Because in the beauty world, oh my gosh, it's more and more brands coming to every market, nevertheless. But in beauty, like Vicky Stroll says, like, we only have 7 seconds to make an impact on shelf. So how your design stands out, the type of packaging, the sensory experience, the information, the brand story, how you're intentional about the products, how do I learn more about the products and ingredients, all of that is communicated through packaging. So as part of that, there's a really key component of understanding how to properly sell within these various channels, like you mentioned, social media, Instagram, TikTok. We're seeing an influx in having more companies be profiled there as part of their omni-channel selling approach versus the traditional route, which is going to knock on doors. So I think, to that point, being intentional, having a solution to the problem, companies really being open to having that dialogue with their consumers, and also being intentional about how they're communicating the effective needs, and also regulations as well. And so, with over 20 years of experience, Julia, you can give us so much advice. But what would be one piece of advice you would leave our listeners today on some of the challenges with selling and how to overcome them in your next conversations?
Yeah, I'm going to talk to the salespeople out there.
Okay.
It's okay to fail. I think part of the risk in sales is the fact that going out there is kind of scary. You're knocking on doors, you're going to get no's, and that's okay. And if you need to change your strategy, you need to, fix what's wrong, go for it. It's being authentic to yourself, being intentional with what you want. If that's to help people, then find a way to help the people you want to work with. And if one strategy doesn't work, try to find another one. There's so many amazing resources out there. Selling with Heart is a great book. Having different podcasts to listen to, getting motivated in different ways. All these things are critical to success. So don't be afraid of failure. Use the resources out there to improve yourself and your strategy, and just be authentic and make sure you know what you want. If that's to help people with packaging, then you're going to be helping clients with packaging to sell more of their product.
Oh, Julia, that was not just for sales professionals. That's for all of us. Because at the end of the day, we all are scared to fail in our regards, right? Because we don't know how we'll be perceived, how it may impact us financially, how it may impact us mentally. So I appreciate you for sharing that, because with me building out my company, I'm always taking risks, but then I'm like, I don't want this to fail. So sometimes I'm telling on myself and being honest, I focus on perfection over progression, and taking those learnings and knowing how to correct them and learn from them. So that message is received for all of us. So I know you said for the sales professionals, but I think that's something timely for all of us, because we're all in this crunch of retail season. We're getting into retail season. We're thinking about end of year budgets. We're thinking about beginning of next year already. We're thinking about, okay, I still have to hit X number of sales by the end of the year. So that's something relevant for all of us. So thank you for leaving us with that. To don't be afraid to fail and learn from it. So I love that. I love that. And see, that's why I call her the queen of circularity. She always knows how to bring it back around full circle for us, in our conversations. And so, Julia, I want to share one final clip, because as I talk about, I coined Julia as the queen of circularity. She's advocating on Capitol Hill. She has over 20 years of experience in this industry, and she just gave y'all a quick masterclass on sales at the end of this segment. So I want to share this quick clip, because just to show how intentional she is and how she wants to ensure that we all are okay to take risk and be okay to fail and be okay to do things that are outside of the norm. So I want to share this quick clip from our last episode. Going back to Capitol Hill, Okay, you talked about what's working well to implement the change. You shared some guidelines and things that we must consider to add to our toolkit. So now what's been challenging around your avocation in this space?
Yeah, so you had alluded to it before, but the infrastructure is simply not there, both on a large scale, but also even in here in California. And it's really challenging because there's a lot of great companies that have innovative products. But for example, those PLA plastics, those utensils that are saying we're compostable, but then unfortunately, most facilities cannot break it down efficiently. And it's causing more of a problem. It's becoming contamination rather than being a environmental savior. And I want these companies to succeed. I feel that these innovative companies with these compostable products are going to be an avenue for their economy if the infrastructure is in place.
Look at there. So, guys, so Julia, thank you so much for being present with me for this celebration, to always share your insight and your wisdom. I This was probably the biggest thing that I needed, which is don't be afraid to fail. And this podcast, I've been scared to fail with this, but you know what? I just keep showing up every single time, and having people like you who are intentional to share their knowledge and wisdom. That's what makes my heart full. So thank you for being part of my community and being intentional.
I mean, I think you're doing amazing, and you never know who you touch. You might be making such a difference for someone out there without even realizing it. So do what you're passionate with and
Yeah.
make sure that you're doing it to the best of your ability, and you're going to make a difference.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Julia Wilsey, who is with Mill Rock Packaging, she is a sales guru, okay? Because you heard her give a masterclass right here with us. So, please make sure you do check out the full episode on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. If you're tuning in with us live, make sure you click the link that's displayed on the screen. And also, if you're checking out the replay on the respective platforms, you will be able to click the link down below to listen to the full conversation with me and Julia, as well as some of the resources she shared today on today's segment. So, Julia, thank you so much for joining me for the celebration. Thank you for being part of my community. And I look forward to placing another order with you soon to give to my community.
Well, thank you and happy birthday. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, Julia. Guys, this is what I mean. This is the power of community, like the powerhouses that I have the opportunity to speak with, to share their insights, to share their wisdom, to pour into me just like I'm pouring into them and pouring into you all. Like, it is like circularity. Like, that's why I call Julia the queen of circularity, because she always knows how to bring it back around full circle. That's what this podcast is really about. And even when I've been scared of moving forward with this podcast, been afraid to fail, I just keep showing up. I keep doing my best. I learn from the lessons. It's been a whole lesson with launching this podcast. It's like building out a whole nother media company in transparency simultaneously to my service business, GLC. So this has been something truly fulfilling for me, because not only do I get to take a break from all the client meetings, client deliverables, project management, etc., but I get to have intentional conversations with people. I get to learn things. So I stay a student in this regard. So it's something truly phenomenal, with the community that I'm creating with through the product and packaging powerhouse, through the extension of my community, who is offering their expertise and knowledge. Like, it's just truly amazing. And I just thank each and every one of my powerhouses that has been on the podcast with me, continue to pour into me, continue to support me, continue to highlight me, continue to share. That's what really is about, because they say your net worth is based upon your network. So thank y'all for being part of my network. I truly, truly appreciate it. So, without further ado, we have one final guest that's joining us right here on the studio stage for the Product and Packaging 1 year celebration. And guys, as we're getting to this next person, so our next guest is going to be Michael Houston. So he released a recent episode with us talking about sustainability. He comes from the beauty world as well. And he also shares a lot of key insights around what it takes to get your products into the market, and also why it's important to use data to help drive some of your decision making. And so Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our next powerhouse guest. He will be our final guest for this segment today and the celebration. If you all are checking in with us live, please make sure you do share this on your respective networks. I will greatly appreciate it. That's a way to gift me on my birthday, and also for the 1 year anniversary of the podcast, is to share this with your network. Secondly, please ensure that you do go follow, like, and subscribe to our respective channels, because this would not be possible without you all. Year to date, we have over 5,000 downloads of our podcast. Like, it's just truly amazing to see how the podcast is evolving. Like, I've been told your podcast is not going to be successful. You're not going to be able to do anything. I've heard all this negative talk, right? But I keep showing up, just like I said with Julia, with my segment with Julia. I keep showing up. I continue to be who I am. I do not waver. I come on with hoops, bow nails, jewelry. I don't sugarcoat, I'm just who I am. And that's what I appreciate about who I am in this season. And also as a business owner, it's taught me to have some tough skin, or tougher skin, in reference of how I operate and more. So we're going to get into that as we do our closing remarks. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on, I call him my sustainable celebrity, which is Mr. Michael Houston. So I'm going to bring him to the virtual stage to join me. Michael, good afternoon, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm
Happy
good.
birthday.
Thank you. I'm digging the shirt. I like it.
Well, I thought it'd be festive since it is your birthday.
Hey, I like it. Adds a little pop of color, a little flair. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Michael Houston. I'm calling you my sustainable celebrity, because you're a sustainable consultant. You a high profile celebrity in LinkedIn and in the sustainability space. So that's the new name for you, Mr. Sustainable
Thank you.
Celebrity.
I'll take that. I don't know the celebrity part, but I'll take sustainability.
Well, you're both. So guys, as me and Michael did a recent interview for the full podcast episode. So fun fact, Whitney Houston's brother's name is Michael Houston. So that's how we're doing the intersection of like the celebrity name and such. And then Michael has been in sustainability for quite some time. He has a very interesting story. So make sure y'all check out the full episode of how he went from aviation to mechanical engineering to sustainability. Like, it's a really cool story. But with him being my Mr. Sustainable Celebrity for today, and also the final guest for our 1 year celebration, I'm truly honored to have you back here with me for this segment, Michael. And so just give a little bit of context about who you are and why you're really intentional about focusing on sustainable packaging.
Well, I would say it starts off by there's a little echo. I don't know if you need to turn your volume down a little bit. Being a numbers guy, I always felt that if you can remove emotion and stick to the numbers, it can't lie, So, and that's the thing I love about being an engineer and a scientist, is that you do the design of experiment, you interpret the data, and the data is what yields your decisions and recommendations to move forward. So my love for packaging came out of the science. And then the love for sustainability came through the love of showing the numbers to justify our actions and why we should be making different decisions. So full circle, been doing this for 20 years now, graduated Tuskegee University with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering with a focus in material science, and have been, worked everywhere from Procter & Gamble to Unilever, to Johnson & Johnson, to Clorox Company, and startup brands such as Ritual, all over the block, Murad and Beachbody. And as you mentioned, just most recently decided to take all my expertise and experiences to start package consulting and helping brands make better decisions with data versus emotion.
Guys, Michael is intentional and does not play about looking at the data, because he's like, okay, You want to go from plastic to glass. That's great, but what does the data say? How does it
Correct.
how does it support it? Where is it coming from? You know, how are you measuring the respective production and emissions of it if you're thinking about sustainability as a whole? Guys, Michael is no joke about using data to help with making more informed decision making. And so I want to ask you a question, Michael, because as you're very intentional about looking at the data to help make more informed decision making, what are some challenges companies face when they try to use data for sustainable packaging? And well, let's start with that. Let's just start with that. What are some common challenges companies face when trying to use data for sustainable packaging?
I would say it's the negative perception that plastic has or some materials. Again, your volume is up a little high.
Oh,
You may want to turn it down, it's still echoing. And it creates this really challenging narrative that is usually driven from, you know, campaigns you see on social media about the evils of certain materials when, you know, as I mentioned before, it's about how manufacturers and brands leverage these materials and are they designed to be single use or a durable good that could be used many times over. So I'll give an example. And I did some research before I came on. So again, if I'm about the numbers. So this is a 16 fluid ounce aluminum package, right? And let's just assume this is also 12 fluid ounces. This is actually 16 fluid ounces. This is 12, so it's slightly shorter. But say it takes up the same volume. When I speak with brands and they're saying, you know what, plastic is evil, and I go back to, all right, what are we trying to change within our environment? We're trying to reduce CO2 emissions. We're trying to reduce the rapid rate of our temperatures rising, our oceans rising, right? I think the number is like 1.5 degrees Celsius we want to reduce. So if that's the case, and if we work backwards from that, we should be choosing packaging that has a low carbon footprint. All right, so I'll pull the numbers. So the CO2 creation of creating plastic, let's just say this is virgin, and I use my software that I love called Eco Impact by Triac.com. If you're a packaging engineer or someone that's in sustainability, you should use it. Bluebird's a great one as well, but I feel like the attention to detail, the level, the degree in which you can leverage the software is a little more robust. So it comes out in terms of kilograms of CO2 equivalent, comes out to 0.0785 kilograms of CO2. And this is for a traditional 18-gram bottle. So if I were to take this new one and, you know, this still water by Open Water, and they make really, really lavish claims, more ocean, less plastic, totally get that, but let's look at the numbers. So this same bottle, you know, say takes up 16 fluid ounces, this takes up 16 fluid ounces, this is 18 grams, this is 23 grams of aluminum. So by weight alone, you're using more material. But if you think about the amount of energy it takes to create molten metal, it's a lot higher, right? And if you think about plastic, you just put some of your plasticware in your dishwasher in high heat, you can melt it to a degree, right? And deform your Tupperware, but it takes a lot more energy. The amount of CO2 that it takes to create this aluminum container is 0.5385 kilograms of CO2. So again, the number is 0.0785 versus 0.5385. That is, if we do, what is the percent increase from our small value to our large value, that's 586% more CO2 creation just to produce this one bottle. But the claims that are made is like, hey, this is less plastic. And again, I want to go back to the data. So why does plastic float? Why does it sit on top of the ocean? The specific gravity of plastic is less than water. If it's heavier than water, 1.0, greater than 1.0, it's going to sink. So if this aluminum container will end up in the ocean, it will sink to the bottom of the ocean. So the travesty that, waste is getting, I think, is it 20 metric tons? I don't know. I believe a year of plastic gets out in the ocean. The benefit is because of its specific gravity, it sits on the top. So we're able to kind of skim it off. But a lot of the heavier weighted trash that makes it out there ends up in the bottom ocean. So it is a travesty. And it goes back to my original statement that I made on our earlier podcast, is that we got to train consumers to do better. You can't just be tossing stuff out in waterways. Brands need to also develop things that are durable. You look at your Stanley Cup, that's a mixture of metal and plastic, and you don't throw that away, you hold on to it, right? So to answer your original question, how do we help brands make these decisions? It's first unpacking is sharing the data, trying to create realistic expectations versus trying to develop things that are going to be counterproductive. So if we're trying to reduce 1.5 degrees Celsius, and that we're doing that by reducing our carbon emissions, we have to work backwards. How much CO2 is it going to take to create this? And what is the extent that we believe this component, this package will live in its life cycle with the consumer before it ends up with the terminal outcome of waste? And if it does become waste, can it be recycled? So that's
guys,
a long with it.
Yeah. No, but I think that's gold because you just gave a quick masterclass on the difference of a plastic bottle and an aluminum bottle, looking at CO2 and also like the gram weight between it and why plastic floats and why aluminum will sink. So I think to that point, a lot of consumers, which I'm gonna play a segment where it talks about what should we do as consumers, to this point of like thinking about how to recycle, reduce, reuse, and things of that sort. But I think that's really important because everybody's like, I want sustainable packaging, right? I want to get away from plastics. Okay, but like you said, what is the data to help support those things? What are we looking at? But what does sustainability mean to you and your brand? Because that is not a one size fits all word or philosophy or approach. There's so many different layers and complexities to it. And to your point, you're using data to really help drive what does sustainability mean to that brand. Is it we're looking at carbon emissions to have a low carbon footprint? Is it we just want something that's best for testing? We see that within cosmetics, within you and I space, from Murad, your experience with Murad, Honest, and my experience as well with different brands. A lot of stuff is in plastic for a reason because of some of the ingredients, looking at drop testing, shelf placement, etc. So with that, I want to play the segment where you talked about what should we do as consumers when it comes to this whole topic around sustainability and what to do with it. So let me play this quick segment right here for you all. And you laughing because you're like, uh-oh. What should we do as consumers to be more intentional about the end of life use and get into the recycling centers and also the infrastructure that's needed?
That's a great question. First, we have to ask ourselves as consumers, is it a need or a want, right? If we can eliminate the wants, we can minimize how much stuff we accumulate, right? So consumerism plays a big part. Working with APR, I'm a big fan of APR. They'll share because they'll do the research and identify what are majority of MRFs able to. If you look at their different articles and recommendations, and if manufacturers can read those articles and understand, as I designed this package, does it fit within the ability of today's MRFs to be able to take it, sort it, and recycle it?
Just a snippet, but remember that?
Wow, I forgot about it, man. That was gold coming out. Just whoa,
exactly.
Completely forgot about that. Yeah.
This is a masterclass that you're doing, and it's so important because as we're seeing retailer requirements change around sustainable packaging, how consumers think about sustainable packaging, the end of life use, and everything. This is so important, and we need consultants like you to help educate the brands to really think about what sustainability means to them and their organization based upon their various sustainability goals or ESG goals. But also too, with packaging EPR in place, all these different guidelines, single plastic use ban, we see so much stuff. It's so much that we need companies to understand and how to use data to really help make those informed decisions before just making a change. Because to your point, if the plastic bottle versus aluminum and looking at the gram weight and looking at the carbon emissions, is that really sustainable? Is it a low carbon footprint? So we need people like you to really be at the table and really educating the brands and understanding the key metrics and the data and how to make those informed decisions as well.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, okay. So, last question for you as we're starting to wrap up for our brief time today. And, guys, Michael did a whole masterclass in our full podcast episode. So, I'm going to display it on the screen as I pull up our next question. And so, if you're checking in live, you can click on the link displayed on your screen on the respective platform to go ahead and add this full episode to your playlist. And it will also be in the recap as well in the show notes for you all to listen to the full episode. But last question for you for our time today is, how can companies ensure the accuracy and reliability of the data they use for making sustainable packaging decisions?
Software, software, software. Um, I mentioned Triac is my go-to. Bluebird is a great resource as well. If anything that is new out there, I would say, you need 3 data points to draw a straight line, right? So if you're going to use this new software that's new and emerging and it has new features such as AI or something, benchmark it against the softwares that most of the industry are using and leveraging to communicate out. But I would recommend that if you are a brand, be consistent, because the softwares, for example, Track will also take into account where is the manufacturing facility in reference to where it's going to be delivered, how much weight, even down to, is it by rail, is it by, trailers, etc. So all your inputs is what's going to give you the most accurate data, and you got to be willing to stand behind it and be consistent. So the way you measured, like for example, when I pulled the data just to figure out how much CO2, I removed all those other variabilities of shipping location, brought it to zero, and say, let's just look at just manufacturing alone. What is that? So just being consistent, doing the research, attend seminars, go to trade shows, see what else is out there. You got to be on the cutting edge if you're going to drive change.
And you can also just hire Michael to come in and be your sustainable consultant as well.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, look, I'm just go ahead and do the plug for you. So to get engaged with Michael and his respective company, the Future Blue Group, his information will be down in the show notes for you all in the respective links. Please get engaged with him on LinkedIn. He has some phenomenal content. Guys, this is why I bring powerhouses to the table. I learn something from every single person. And I just learned something from Michael and his, highlight of breaking down just manufacturing the plastic bottle versus aluminum. So I stay a student, and that's what it's all about, guys. And so, Michael, my Mr. Sustainable Celebrity, I appreciate you for being here with me in the house and sharing your insights and wisdom as always as well. So, guys, make sure you do listen to the full episode I did with Michael Houston, the celebrity, okay, Sustainable Celebrity. It is available on all streaming platforms. It's down in the show notes for you all. Also, his respective links to his company, the Future Blue Group. He's also an entrepreneur that has a phenomenal product, the shower pouch. So he talks about reduce, reuse, and recycle of his actual product and using biodegradable materials. Like when I say he is sustainable all around, from not only what he does from looking at data to use that to help making more informed decision making, he's using that in his own entrepreneurial journey, being the founder of Shower Pouch. And that's a really cool story of how he created Shower Pouch as well. So, Michael, I appreciate you for being here with me and supporting me for this 1 year celebration. So, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to chat with you and your audience. And when you know better, you do better, right? So, again, thank you for giving me this platform to speak my truth.
Absolutely. Well, I'll be contacting you offline soon. So for us to continue our conversation, and we have to meet up when you come to Atlanta, go to Waffle House.
Yes, sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate you.
Take care and happy birthday again.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
So guys, this, as you see, I had 5 powerhouses join me for today for the celebration. And when I say that, when I reflect on like my time of the podcast and also like the people that I've had the opportunity to speak with here on the podcast, like my heart is full. Like I did this thinking nobody will listen. I shared briefly how somebody was like, you're doing an industry podcast. Like, why would you not talk about something else, to target specifically to women? And I was like, that's not what I want to do. I want to have intentional conversations, raw, authentic conversations with people. So one, I can continue to learn about the industry, but also to bring more awareness to it. Because my flair, how I do things and my conversations and my approach is different than some of my fellow podcast hosts. But we all are in this industry to really do one thing, which is to help elevate and promote the love of packaging products. And also, of course, I have my husband's business, Pallet Pros, in packaging and pallets. So there is so many intersections with what I do, with my own company, Get Level Consultant, GLC, to building out the podcast, having the intentional conversations, and more. So, like, this is what it's all about. And being able to have powerhouses join me for this conversation, for the celebration, is just to show this tidbit of their level of information, their level of expertise, how intentional they are, how they are all truly doing what Sajana mentioned earlier in our conversation. And Julia reiterated that, offering a solution to problems. And that's what I really try to do with this podcast, with the Product and Packaging Powerhouse: offer solution to problems, look at it from different perspectives, question the status quo. And so as we're wrapping up for today, I want to share just a few other mini clips of other podcast guests that have been featured here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. And so, as I think about my time of building up the resiliency to create the podcast, to continue to do what I do in my own independent company, how do I continue to show up and do it afraid and be okay to fail, like Julia mentions? I want to bring up a clip from Rachel Hassel, where she talks about the importance of crafting a resiliency plan on her episode of The Power of Brand Value and Procurement. So let me highlight a couple of these clips as we start to wrap up for today. So when you talk about building a resiliency plan, which is great, what can small businesses or indie brands start doing to make sure they're creating that resiliency plan?
Yeah. So here's the top tip. Here's the magic unlock thing, right? And big companies don't even do this. It is so much easier to qualify a secondary vendor during the development process than it is when you're without any supply. I always tell people, like, hey, if it takes you 2 weeks longer, if it costs you a little bit longer to qualify 2 of your critical components, right? Do it up front and you will save money on the back end. And I'll tell you, Megan, because you think like big companies would nail this and do this, they don't, right? So many people do not do this. And this is the easiest thing to do to help yourself in the long run.
So you heard it from Rachel Hassel, which you'll be able to hear the full episode directly on our website, the Product and Packaging Powerhouse.com. So you can click the link that is displayed on the screen. All that information will be down in the show notes for you all as well to tune in. And so when you think about what she shared, like how to really be doing the proper vetting up front during the development stage, like that is so key and critical, because even with startup brands, a lot of them do not think about those things. And yet, like I mentioned with my conversation with Michael, everybody wants sustainable packaging, but yet there are some implications and some things you must consider. But if you have that resiliency plan in place up front and really properly vetting out your vendors up front during the development stage, it will help with setting the tone. But for this next segment, I want to highlight one of my conversations with Brad Levin. He's one of my good friends in the industry. When I started my business, he was probably one of the first people that I spoke with for my initial meet and greet. And him offering, saying, hey, if you work with startup brands, I can help. So I want to highlight a mini clip of him talking about sustainable packaging for startup brands, because a lot of brands want sustainable packaging, but does it really make sense for your brand? So let's check out what Brad had to say in this quick segment. So Brad, let me ask you this. So since you work, like your sweet spot is working with the indie brands, how are you really offering them sustainable packaging, working alongside of them, for them going direct to consumer?
So this is the $1 billion question for I think all of us in the sustainability world is, we're still at a point where the cost is very prohibitive to startup brands and younger brands. And, you know, I've always said, you know, whatever step you're taking is better than not taking a step at all. So it doesn't have to always be, you know, 100% sustainable packaging or, you know, even in your operations, you know, there's just certain steps you can take, and then there's stuff that you will do down the road as you grow.
So, just what Brad mentioned, these are some of the key elements that I share with my brands who are in the startup phase. Everybody wants the big sustainable packaging because it's the new thing, right? It's like the new trend. However, like Brad said, sometimes we need to go back and look at what can we do now and then incrementally phase in. So a lot of times when I tell my brands with Get Level Consulting, let's look at sustainable operations. Then let's look at, okay, if you're creating a sustainable product, like what are the sustainable ingredients? Excuse me, to then looking at what is the sustainable packaging that you utilize that will be suitable for those sustainable ingredients, to then looking at the sustainable logistics. And like Michael mentioned, looking at what type of materials we look at thanks to data. If we looking at plastic versus aluminum or other sustainable materials. So these are conversations that really has to be talked about. Now, we will love, a lot of us in the industry will love to execute your sustainable packaging initiatives, your sustainable products, and more. We can do that, no problem. As long as you're willing to pay the dollars and cents to make it make sense for you. But at the end of the day, how can you be very intentional about the sustainable operations? Because you can have sustainable packaging, sustainable products, but if there is no sustainable operations, that is going to be detrimental to the launch, excuse me, to the success of your brand. And so when I think about that and brands wanting to have more sustainable packaging and still incorporate a lot of information on there, you know, Vicky Struhl, she shares about how she sees an influx from her design perspective and branding perspective over the past 25 years, how a lot more brands want sustainable packaging, which is great. But a lot of times you don't need to overshare a lot of information on the packaging for it to resonate with the brands. And that's part of like sustainable design. Like, what are things that you can do to help make sure that the design is being able to display on shelf? Because we only have 7 seconds to make an impact. And Vicky said that on the full episode, first off. And data helps support that too, to show where the consumer's eyes lay. You only have 7 seconds before they pick up the first product. So even from a sustainable design perspective, you have to be intentional in making sure that you're cognizant of how much information is shared on the packaging as well. So I want to share this segment from Vicky where she talks about her experience as a designer of what to do to think about sustainable design and also making sure that you're properly displaying your brand with the level of integrity and also being mindful of how to reduce some of the claims and some best practice. So let's check out what Vicky had to say on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. So to help reduce all the information to not overwhelm a consumer, what are other strategies you would recommend for brands to use to talk about the claims and the impact and efficacy and things of that sort?
So I think that if brands are going to put claims on a package, I think they need to restrict it to the most important, maybe the second most important for the primary display panel, and that's it. Knowing that someone will turn it around. Now, you typically on the back, you have some kind of narrative copy, you've got a barcode, you've got ingredients, you've got like a variety of things. If it's folding carton, you get 2 more panels. I always think that QR codes are underutilized. So I think there is opportunity for QR codes. I think in folding cartons, there's opportunity for information on the inside. I think that's often wasted real estate. And if you think about the real estate, that's a lot of real estate if it's completely blank.
So guys, you heard what Vicky mentioned of how to really maximize the space and other practices to not overwhelm your consumer with information. Like at the end of the day, as a consumer, we want to know a lot of information about the brand as soon as we pick it up. But like Vicky mentioned, and this is part of like the sustainable design element, not to overload the consumer with information on your folding carton, being able to maximize the real estate on there because you're still paying for the cartons regardless, but even incorporating something as similar as QR codes. QR codes is the way of the world and how we navigate now, especially thanks to COVID. So even like the restaurants, a lot of them have cut out having menus, and they now say scan the QR code that's displayed on your tabletop. To being able to subscribe to something instantly, to opt in somebody's mailing list. Same thing could be applied into the packaging design element. So being cognizant of those things and incorporating like those sustainable design tactics, like Vicky mentioned, which you can check out her full episode as well, is really key at the end of the day. And so, as we're starting to wrap up, I'm going to share one final segment. And the reason I'm sharing this is because my conversation and segment with Julia Wilsey, she talked about how some of the challenges with selling, and we're starting to see an influx in more brands and consumers alike, starting to really leverage social media, Instagram, TikTok, and other platforms. So I want to share a quick segment from Roxanne Sinclair, who's with eShipper. She talks about logistics and omni-channel approach because at the end of the day, we create the products, we create the packaging, but then we have to ship it somewhere. So whether that's a brand's headquarter, a fulfillment center, or to the next destination, whatever that may look like, and how to really leverage the omni-channel approach as part of the art of selling and incorporating that into logistics. So let's hear what Roxanne had to say about this approach. And so Roxanne, same question for you. Based upon like different platforms, what piece of advice would you give our listeners to really leverage incorporating omni-channel approaches and strategies and logistics, and how to be thinking about it intentionally for the platforms too?
The one thing that I've noticed, and I am seeing a lot of that now, especially when it comes to the likes of platforms like TikTok, mainly TikTok, is your customer wants to have a understanding of how the logistics part of it works and when and how that product is being delivered to them. And one example I'll give you is the other day I was on TikTok with my nephew. He's 5, and he said, "Auntie, I want to show you this video," and I'm like, "Okay, great."
So, guys, as you heard from Roxanne, even her 5-year-old nephew is starting to really see how he wants to interact with a certain thing that he saw thanks to YouTube, thanks to what he saw on Instagram and stuff. So, it's starting much earlier. And it's crazy because, like, me thinking about where I was as a kid in social media, as a kid, and the age I was when I got into social media, 18. And these kids are starting like as soon as they come out the womb, like they are advanced with technology and stuff like that, and really knowing how to leverage social media. Like we as the adults, in the wiser group, we are learning things from this younger generation with social media and seeing how to really resonate with them because they are the future generation. They are going to be the future consumers, and some of them are the consumers now. So, like Roxanne mentioned, like it has to be very intentional in understanding like the platform that you're really going to be using and really optimize it, for it to make sense for your brand. And so there's plenty of other segments that I could highlight here, but unfortunately, we do not have a full 2 days to highlight all of the clips from all the powerhouses that I've had the opportunity to speak with. But one thing I can tell you that you can do is for you to go and check out our full podcast episode library. Productandpackagingpowerhouse.com. The link is displayed at the bottom of the screen if you're tuning in live, and it's also going to be down in the show notes for you all as well. When I say that there is so much knowledge in the library, and it's going to continue to be filled with knowledge from new powerhouses as well, I'm just amazed at like how the podcast has evolved from episode 1 of why I started the podcast to even like my most recent podcast, and the podcasts that are to come. And so as I think about, this 1-year anniversary of the podcast, also coming into my personal new year, which is my birthday, the one word that I would say that correlates to where I'm at personally also within my business and building out the podcast further is elevation. Like elevating in everything that I do, continue to elevate even more with the knowledge and expertise that I invest into myself, into the company and my team members, helping to elevate other minority women owned companies to join me for the conversations and for select projects. I've worked with Sajana Bell, I've worked with Camille. They both were featured here on the podcast. I referred somebody to Michael Houston because it was a more viable fit for him than it was for me. So that is the power of community and being intentional. And that's part of like elevating, making sure that I have the community in place that is helping, that not only wants to elevate themselves, but also elevate other people in the space. Because like Camille mentioned, it's like a big pie. There's so many different slices, but there is enough pie and enough slices for all of us. And so how do we continuously build that out? And really, that's why I created the product and packaging powerhouse, because at the end of the day, there is enough piece of the pie for each and every one of us in this space. And having these various powerhouses to join me for intentional conversations to talk about the good and the ugly truth around creating the products, the packaging, and everything in between from the various business sectors, that's what we need to talk about instead of always just kind of tiptoeing around some of the conversations and what we see. It is to really help elevate the companies, elevate the brands, elevate professionals that are in this space as well to ensure that they are set up for success. And so as we close out for today, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you all for tuning in. We have 5,000 downloads to date for the podcast. That is a huge success. We are predominantly in the US, but we also have some international listeners that are in the UK and also Spain. Like I was like, okay, I have a little bit of Spain. I have a few Spaniards that are checking us out. So I love that. So gracias, señoras and senoritas. And so just seeing like the evolution of the podcast, like my behind the scenes team. Thank y'all. Y'all help keep this going, to my powerhouses. Thank you all for sharing your knowledge and expertise. To my listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in, for listening to the conversations. To those who share the podcast and the respective efforts, thank you for sharing. Because our net worth is based upon our network. So thank you to each and every one of you all. I pray that this podcast has filled you. I hope the celebration is just a tidbit to show like the level of powerhouses and expertise that is displayed through the product and packaging powerhouse. And also to highlight my Black owned business. It's August. It's my favorite month of the year, not only for my birthday, but the 1 year celebration of the podcast. My 10th wedding anniversary is coming up with my husband. So make sure you do tune in to our upcoming podcast release. That's going to be on August 28th, our actual 10-year anniversary. So I'm really excited about that for that conversation, which is the intersection of business and marriage. We're operating two independent businesses under one household and maintaining a solid union as well. So that's going to be a really cool conversation once it drops on the podcast and other future powerhouses. And so if you have listened to our podcast, or if you, and please be sure to add it to your playlist if you have not, make sure you give us a 5-star rating. That truly means the world to us. It truly means the world to the powerhouses that come on, dedicate their time to share their knowledge and expertise. So make sure you give us 5-star ratings in your respective platform. We appreciate the love and the support as well. And so, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning in to today's 1 year celebration of the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. I am your host and curator, Megan Young Gamble, and I'm so excited that y'all have been able to join me live and also be able to join me for the replay as well. Make sure you do follow, like, and subscribe to all of our respective platforms and also our YouTube channels. We will continue to do more live segments like this in the future. So make sure you do follow us so you get all the notifications as well. And make sure you get engaged with the powerhouses that did join us for the celebration today. If you are tuning in on your audio platforms, all of their respective information will be down in the show notes for you all, and also will be linked in the respective platforms for you all to continue the connection, get engaged with them as well. And make sure you get engaged with my business. So my business, Get Level Consulting, we are the packaging and project execution team for health, beauty, and wellness companies. And so we are very intentional about who we work with and how we operate to focus on sustainability and efficiency for your operations. And so thank you all so much for tuning in to the live 1 year celebration today with me, Megan Young Gamble, your host of the Product and Packaging Powerhouse and CEO of Get Level Consulting. Thank y'all so much, and we look forward to seeing you on the next segment. Talk to y'all soon.